welcome to another, I don't really know what to call it, beginner video. In this video I'm just going to talk about what I would class as my top suggestions for beginners to tackle. I get asked all the time, what is the best thing to make when you're just starting out? And I also see that question get asked a lot on Facebook and things, on these groups. And a lot of the time, a granny square gets suggested as the first thing that you should try and tackle. And yes, obviously granny squares are a fundamental crochet item, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for your very first project because number one, it may have just been me, but I actually struggled quite a lot with the granny square when I first started out. It took me quite a few attempts, I don't know exactly what shape they were, but they certainly weren't square the first couple of goes that I had. So it can be quite disheartening when you're really trying and everyone's saying, oh, you should start with this. And if you can't get it, it can really knock your confidence. So as much as obviously granny squares are great and they are something that you will want to move on to, that, as I say, they're not necessarily the thing that I would recommend starting out with because they're also really time consuming. So obviously each individual square is going to have a tail to sew in. And then you've obviously got to stitch them all together, and then you've got to stitch all the way around the outside and add a border, and it's not something that you can get like an instant gratification from. You can't feel good about it straight away almost because you're not finished. There's so many steps to the process of doing something with a granny square. And so anyway, I've just got a little pile of loveliness here, and they're just suggestions. They're not by any means a bossy, this is what you've got to make, but it's just suggestions on things that, number one, use a few basic techniques, but number two, can be finished within a matter of a couple of hours, and you've got a finished actual something at the end of that couple of hours work. So obviously this is for people that have already gone through my beginners series and have mastered the chain and some of the basic stitches, so your doubles and trebles and things like that. They are your absolute basics that you need to have practice beforehand, but these are just projects that you can just whip up and feel really good about what you've completed, and it's a finished product within not too long a time period. One of the first ones is, you may see a particular blanket stitch that you really like the look of, but you might not necessarily want to jump straight into a huge blanket, and that is just to use whatever stitch you've seen that you like the look of and make a small bit. So whatever stitch you've seen that you like the look of, just make something like a washcloth like I've done here. So this is using my Fluffy Clouds tutorial, for example, and obviously that is named as a blanket on my channel, but you can use any stitch to just make up little washcloths. And so you can get to grips with the stitch, but in a very small area if you like, and you can have it finished in a few hours. And then if you want to move on then to making a huge blanket with it, then great. But washcloths are just a really, really good way of testing out your technique and testing out a stitch, but without having to spend months and months on it. So they're obviously a really good project. And then on the similar sort of length, you've also got things like little face scrubbies. So again, tutorials for these are all on my channel. I will link everything down below. But you've got little round face scrubbies, which again are perfect because not only do they test out your basic stitch skills, you're working in a different shape that you might not have done before, and it also gets you used to increasing as well. And obviously this particular one also has a little border on, so it just uses lots of techniques, but again, you can whip it up in, obviously my time scale is, I can do these in about 15-20 minutes, but obviously if you were literally just starting out, then an hour maybe, but again you've got something actually finished. So brilliant one are little face scrubbies. And then obviously this is a Christmas one, but it can be used in any colours, but coasters as well are another great one. You can make up a little set of them, and that could almost be your first crochet gift that you give to somebody as well, a little set of coasters. But they, again, ones like this as well also get you used to changing colours and get you used to weaving in your ends. So coasters are a really good one, especially ones that you might want to change colour in. Again, it just teaches you many more techniques, but again in something that is quite a short time period. But then I would say probably my favourite thing, or my number one thing to recommend to a beginner, is a scarf. So it can be for you, it can be for anybody. But again, a scarf is just a wonderful way to test out a pattern. But again, you can have it done in a day or two. So I mean, this one here that I've got is my tulip stitch scarf, and this is obviously an infinity scarf, but it's just, obviously they're nice and cozy, nice and warm, and again you can just whip them up and have them done really, really quickly. They make really, really nice gifts as well. But there's nothing worse than starting out on a project when you're a beginner, and when you've done an hour on it or 2 hours on it or 3 hours on it and still thinking there is such a long way to go with it. It's really good to do things like scarves to have just that nice finished product. So again, this is my tulip stitch scarf, but I will link down below just to my whole scarf and shawl series, because they are obviously a great way to test things out. And again, this is another infinity scarf. This is my basic lace stitch infinity scarf, so obviously it's in that most amazing rainbow yarn, and again it's just the basic lace stitch. And I mean, I whipped this up in probably 2 hours, and again it's just a nice one to have done. I actually made a really long one on this because I wanted it to go around 3 times. I wanted it to be quite a bulky one almost, so I wanted it to go around 3 times. So that is my mesh scarf. So again, a couple of hours and it was done. So I don't know why I'm putting all these on actually, it doesn't matter what they look like. But anyway, but yeah, infinity scarves are just, or even just obviously leaving them long, scarves are just a really good one. And then I'm just going to give you a little sneak preview of the tutorial that is coming next week. So this is obviously an ear warmer / headband that I made for my daughter this week, and the tutorial will be coming for this next week. But again, this took me maybe 2 hours, and again it's just really quick, really simple, and it's just one of those things that again makes good gifts, but it's not going to take you the earth to complete it. You know, you can practice a stitch, you can use any stitch you like, but this particular one in the tutorial is just the seed stitch, which again is on my channel, and it's just been done in a chunky yarn, so it took no time at all really. But they are very, very pretty little headbands. So that is it for this video. It was just a few suggestions of things other than the granny square, because you know, for me a granny square is something that you progress to when you've got more time and when you're not as bothered about feeling like you've finished something. Because for me, when I started, I just wanted to have that feeling of I've done something and I've finished it and it turned out well. It's much more encouraging, I think, when you're just starting out to have that feeling. So I really hope that you didn't mind this little ramble, and that it points some of you in the right direction for when you're just starting out. But as always, links are all in the description. I will leave a couple of suggestions maybe here of maybe the scarf series for you to have a look at. But I will see you for another tutorial very, very soon. Bye for now.